Beneath the tough hills of Cappadocia lies an entire world, silent, mysterious, and ancient. The first mentions of underground cities in this region appear as early as Xenophon in the 4th century BC. The Greek historian wrote about strange dwellings carved deep underground, where the inhabitants of Anatolia sought refuge from the dangers of the outside world. But it was only in the 20th century that humanity realized the true scale of this subterranean phenomenon. Not just shelters, entire cities with streets, temples, stables, and storerooms, descending 8 levels deep into the earth. Derinkuyu, Kaymakli, Ozkonak. These are just a few of the 40 known underground complexes scattered across modern-day Turkey. Who created these underground labyrinths? Why were these thousands of rooms carved out? Were their inhabitants fleeing military threats, religious persecution, or, as some legends claim, a global catastrophe that changed the face of the earth? A mystery encased in stone awaits its solution. The landscape of Cappadocia seems to have been created not by nature, but by the imagination of an artist. Whimsical rock formations, resembling towers, cones, and mushrooms, are scattered across valleys and plateaus, creating an otherworldly landscape that locals call lunar. But this fairy tale scenery is the result of millions of years of geological activity, which began over 20 million years ago when eruptions from the Erciyes, Hasan, and Guluda volcanoes covered the region with layers of ash, lava, and basalt. Over time, rainwater and wind began their painstaking work, carving whimsical shapes, now known as fairy chimneys, into the soft tuff. But the true wonder of Cappadocia is hidden from view, beneath the surface. It was the special composition of the rocks that made the creation of underground cities possible. Tuff is a porous volcanic rock, soft enough to be worked with primitive tools, yet surprisingly strong and stable after contact with air. It is an ideal material for underground construction. The region's climate also played a key role in the development of underground architecture. Cappadocia is located about 1,000 meters above sea level in a semi-arid zone with sharp temperature fluctuations. Summers are hot, and winters are piercingly cold. In such conditions, underground dwellings offered surprising comfort. A stable temperature of about 15 degrees Celsius year-round. The geological structure of the region also provided another important advantage for the creators of the underground cities: access to water. Porous tuff perfectly filters rainwater, which collects above basalt layers, forming underground reservoirs. Ancient builders skillfully used this feature, creating wells that reached aquifers even at significant depths. The underground cities of Cappadocia are not isolated complexes, but part of a single ecosystem of the region. They are organically integrated into the surrounding landscape, using natural folds of the terrain to camouflage entrances and ventilation shafts. Some researchers believe that many of these cities are connected by tunnels, forming a gigantic underground network whose full extent remains unknown to this day. The unique combination of geological factors transformed Cappadocia into an ideal place for creating underground shelters. But who exactly decided to go underground? And what forced entire communities to leave the surface? The answer to this question lies in the turbulent and often tragic history of the region, which became a crossroads of civilizations, religions, and military conflicts. The history of Cappadocia is a chronicle of many civilizations succeeding one another over millennia. The first known inhabitants of these lands were the Hittites, a powerful Bronze Age people who created one of the greatest ancient empires in Anatolia in the 2nd millennium BCE. It was the Hittites who, perhaps, began to develop Cappadocia's underground spaces, carving the first storerooms and cultic chambers into the soft tuff. Their sacred texts mention, quote, though the precise interpretation of these records remains a subject of academic debate. After the fall of the Hittite Empire, under the onslaught of the quote, around 1200 BCE, Cappadocia passed from hand to hand. Phrygians, Cimmerians, Lydians, all left their mark on the region's cultural mosaic. In the 6th century BCE, the territory became part of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. Persian rule lasted for over 2 centuries and significantly influenced local culture and religion. It was during the Persian period that the name Cappadocia first appeared in historical sources. The Old Persian Cappadocia likely meant land of beautiful horses, testament to the region's renown for horse breeding even then. The Persians established a system of satrapies, provinces governed by viceroys, in Cappadocia, and integrated the local nobility into the imperial administrative system. A turning point was Alexander the Great's campaign in the 330s BCE. After the collapse of his empire, Cappadocia gained independence under the rule of the local Ariarathed dynasty. The Hellenistic Cappadocian kingdom existed for almost 3 centuries, balancing between powerful neighbors, the Seleucids, Pontus, and rising Rome. It was during this period, likely, that the large-scale expansion of underground complexes began. The unstable political situation, constant wars and raids demanded reliable shelters for the local population. Cappadocians found an ingenious solution: to go underground, creating multi-level fortress cities capable of accommodating thousands of people along with their livestock and food supplies. In the 1st century BCE, Cappadocia became a buffer state between the Roman Republic and Eastern powers. The last king, Archelaus, was deposed by Emperor Tiberius in 17 CE, and the region was incorporated into the Roman Empire as a province. The Roman period brought relative stability and prosperity. Important trade routes connecting the Mediterranean with Mesopotamia and further with the Silk Road passed through Cappadocia. However, it was during the Byzantine period, beginning in the 4th century CE, that Cappadocia's underground cities experienced their heyday. The adoption of Christianity as the state religion of the Roman Empire had enormous consequences for the region. Cappadocia became one of the centers of early Christianity, home to influential theologians such as Basil the Great, Gregory of Nyssa, and Gregory of Nazianzus, church fathers known as the Cappadocian Fathers. During this period, the underground complexes acquired new significance. They became not only shelters from external enemies, but also centers of Christian life. Churches and monasteries, adorned with frescoes depicting biblical scenes, were carved into the tuff caves. Monastic communities, seeking solitude and asceticism, found an ideal place for prayer and contemplation in the underground labyrinths. Derinkuyu and Kaimakla are 2 colossal underground cities in Cappadocia, each a true marvel of ancient engineering. Derinkuyu, revealed to the world in 1963, astounds with its sheer scale. 8 subterranean levels, descending to a depth of approximately 85 meters, could simultaneously shelter up to 20,000 people, along with their livestock and food supplies. The city's structure resembles an inverted anthill. The upper levels were primarily intended for housing animals and storing provisions. The deeper one went, the more private the rooms became. The lower floors housed living quarters, public halls, wineries, and even small temples with altars carved into the tuff. Kaimakla, located 10 kilometers from Derinkuyu, is no less impressive in scale. Although only 4 of the presumed 20 levels are open to tourists, archaeological research suggests that the city could accommodate up to 15,000 inhabitants. Its layout is more horizontal, with extensive rooms connected by a network of low corridors. Both cities share a well-conceived security system. Entrances are camouflaged and protected by massive stone doors, discs up to 1.5 meters in diameter and weighing approximately 500 kilograms. These doors could only be closed from the inside and blocked narrow passages, making enemy penetration impossible. The corridors were intentionally made low and narrow, to force potential invaders to stoop and advance one by one, becoming easy targets for defenders. The most impressive feature of these underground complexes is the ventilation system. Hundreds of vertical shafts, many reaching depths of over 50 meters, ensured constant air circulation even on the lowest levels. These shafts were carefully camouflaged on the surface and often located within the living quarters of surface settlements, making their detection extremely difficult for outsiders. Archaeological research confirms the existence of a tunnel approximately 9 kilometers long, connecting Derinkuyu and Kaimakla. This suggests the existence of a single underground network that linked various complexes in the region into an integrated system of shelters. The underground cities of Cappadocia are astonishing not only for their scale, but also for the engineering genius of their creators. The ventilation system of these complexes is a true marvel of ancient technical thought. Thousands of air ducts, penetrating the tuff, form a complex network that ensures constant circulation of fresh air, even at the deepest levels. These shafts, ranging from 20 to 30 centimeters in diameter, extend vertically tens of meters to the surface, where they are skillfully disguised among rocks and vegetation. Ancient engineers utilized the principle of convection. Warm air rises, creating a natural draft. As a result, constant air exchange was maintained in the underground chambers without any mechanical devices. Modern research shows that even when all levels were fully occupied by people and animals, the system provided sufficient oxygen. No less impressive is the water supply. Deep wells, drilled through the tuff rock to aquifer layers, provided residents with clean drinking water. It is noteworthy that these wells were not directly connected to the surface. Access to them was only possible from within the city, which prevented the possibility of water poisoning by an enemy or blockage of the source. Special cisterns, carved into the tuff and carefully insulated, were used for collecting and storing rainwater. Analysis of these reservoirs shows that ancient builders used natural waterproofing materials, mixtures based on beeswax, animal fats, and mineral components. The food storage system also demonstrates remarkable foresight. Special chambers with a constant temperature of about 15 degrees and controlled humidity allowed grain, dried fruits, and other provisions to be preserved for many months. Archaeologists have discovered remnants of enormous clay vessels, pithoi, each capable of holding up to 1 ton of grain, in these storage facilities. The kitchens of the underground cities deserve special attention. They were located on the upper levels and equipped with enlarged ventilation shafts to remove smoke. A unique feature of these rooms was a system of chimneys that distributed heat from the hearths to the living quarters, creating a primitive but effective central heating. What was life like for people hiding from the outside world beneath thick layers of tuff rock? Archaeological finds allow us to glimpse into the daily lives of the ancient underground inhabitants of Cappadocia. Living quarters in the underground cities were surprisingly functional. Family rooms typically measured 15 to 20 square meters, with niches for sleeping and storing personal belongings. Walls were often covered with clay plaster for better thermal insulation and dust protection, while floors were laid with reed mats or animal hides. The household utensils found by archaeologists are striking in their diversity. Ceramic lamps fueled by olive oil, clay pottery of various shapes and sizes, stone millstones for grinding grain, looms and primitive spinning wheels. All these items speak of intense economic activity even in the conditions of subterranean existence. Kitchen areas were primarily located on the upper levels for better smoke extraction. They were equipped with stone hearths, featuring a well-thought-out ventilation system, and niches for storing food and dishes. Analysis of food remains in kitchen waste shows that the diet of the underground inhabitants was quite varied. Wheat, barley, lentils, chickpeas, grapes, nuts, as well as meat from domestic animals, goats, sheep, and poultry. Wineries occupied a special place. Viticulture and winemaking were an important part of Cappadocia's economy since antiquity. In the underground cities, archaeologists discovered special rooms with stone grape presses and tanks for collecting juice. The constant temperature of the underground spaces created ideal conditions for fermentation and wine storage. The social organization of the underground communities, it seems, was quite complex. The size and arrangement of the rooms indicate a clear hierarchy and division of functions. More spacious halls likely served for assemblies and collective decision-making. Found luxury items, jewelry, imported ceramics, coins, attest to the existence of a wealthy elite, even in the conditions of an underground refuge. Evidence of interaction between the underground inhabitants and the outside world is particularly interesting. Numerous finds of coins of various origins, imported goods, and trade seals suggest that even during periods of danger, the underground cities were not completely isolated. Trade links were maintained through a system of secret passages and trusted intermediaries from neighboring regions. In the depths of the Cappadocian underground, archaeologists have discovered not only dwellings and outbuildings, but also numerous sacred spaces. Temples, chapels, prayer rooms, all bear witness to the fact that religious life did not cease even underground. In the dim light of oil lamps, in the twilight of the Tuff catacombs, the ancient inhabitants of Cappadocia continued to worship their gods and saints. The Christian churches carved into the soft stone are particularly impressive. Their walls are adorned with frescoes depicting biblical scenes and the faces of saints. Some of these paintings have survived to this day, striking in their vibrancy of colors and elegance of execution. Early images, dating from the 4th to 6th centuries, are characterized by simplicity and schematic representation. Later Byzantine frescoes demonstrate complex iconography and refined execution technique. But Christianity is only one of the religious traditions that left their mark on the underground cities. Archaeologists also find evidence of older beliefs here. Niches for statues of gods, altars with symbolic images, ritual objects, all indicate that before the arrival of Christianity, the underground inhabitants worshipped pagan deities. The influence of Mithraism, a mysterious cult popular among Roman legionaries, and Zoroastrianism, which came from Persia, is particularly noticeable. One of the most intriguing hypotheses links the creation of underground temples with religious persecutions. During periods of persecution of Christians, especially during the reigns of emperors Decius and Diocletian in the 3rd century, believers could hide in underground shelters, continuing to secretly practice their religion. Later, in the 7th and 8th centuries, when the region was threatened by Arab raids, Christian communities could again seek salvation underground. Of particular interest are the traces of heretical movements. Some researchers believe that followers of Nestorianism, Monophysitism, and other currents rejected by the official church might have taken refuge in the underground cities of Cappadocia. Isolated from the outside world, these underground communities became an ideal sanctuary for those whose religious views diverged from the dominant doctrine. Archaeologists have discovered so-called catechetical schools in Derinkuyu and Kaimakla, rooms where new converts were presumably taught the fundamentals of the Christian faith. These rooms are characterized by special acoustics and often have benches carved along the perimeter of the walls. The copying and storage of sacred texts, a crucial task for preserving religious tradition in isolation, might also have taken place here. The religious aspect of the underground cities of Cappadocia is inextricably linked to their primary purpose: to serve as a refuge. In critical moments of history, when the outside world became hostile, going underground allowed not only the preservation of lives, but also spiritual values, faith, and cultural identity. Perhaps this desire to preserve one's worldview, one's connection to the divine, was one of the main reasons for the creation of these magnificent underground complexes. What if the underground cities of Cappadocia were created not for defense against invasions or religious persecution, but as refuges from natural cataclysms of unprecedented scale? This hypothesis, though seemingly fantastic at first glance, is finding increasing corroboration among modern researchers. The geological history of the region testifies to periodic natural disasters that could have threatened the very existence of local communities. Analysis of volcanic rocks shows that approximately 10,000 years ago, the volcanoes Urchies and Hassan experienced a period of activity, spewing tons of ash and toxic gases into the atmosphere. Traces of these eruptions are still readable in the soil layers throughout central Anatolia. For ancient inhabitants, such events might have seemed like the end of the world, and underground shelters, the only chance for salvation. In the tufa caves, people could have weathered not only the eruption itself, but also its consequences: acid rain, poisoned water, crop failures, and famine. Well-thought-out ventilation and water supply systems allowed for subterranean existence for months, or perhaps even years, until nature recovered. Particularly intriguing are the parallels between the underground cities of Cappadocia and the myth of the Great Flood, present in the cultures of many peoples worldwide. In the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, the biblical narrative of Noah, the Greek myths of Deucalion, everywhere appears the motif of a catastrophic flood, from which only a small group of people is saved. Could these legends reflect real events associated with a sharp climate change at the end of the last ice age? Geological studies show that approximately 12,000 years ago, the melting of glaciers led to a significant rise in global sea levels and the flooding of coastal areas. In the Black Sea, scientists have discovered traces of an ancient cataclysm. Approximately 7,500 years ago, waters from the Mediterranean Sea broke through the Bosphorus, causing rapid flooding of coastal settlements. Cappadocia, located at a significant altitude above sea level, could have become a refuge for refugees from flooded regions. They brought with them not only building skills, but also the memory of the catastrophe they had endured, passed down from generation to generation. Another possible cataclysm from which people could have sought refuge in the underground cities is extreme climate change. Paleoclimatic studies show that about 8,200 years ago, the region experienced a period of sharp cooling and drought that lasted several centuries. This climatic disruption, caused by changes in ocean current circulation, led to the collapse of many ancient civilizations in the Middle East. In such conditions, underground cities, with their stable temperature and protected water resources, could have become true oases of life. Some researchers go even further, linking the creation of underground shelters with cosmic catastrophes. Analysis of ice cores from Greenland and Antarctica indicates several periods when Earth was bombarded by meteorites or comets. Such events could have caused global cooling due to dust raised into the atmosphere, and subsequent crop failures and famine. In this context, underground cities appear as a well-thought-out solution for survival in conditions of a prolonged ecological crisis. The underground cities of Cappadocia were not merely shelters from bad weather or temporary refuges. They were true military fortresses, designed with astonishing strategic mastery. For millennia, the Cappadocia region was at the crossroads of civilizations, becoming an arena of endless conflicts and conquests. Persians, Macedonians, Romans, Byzantines, Arabs, Seljuks. Waves of invaders rolled in one after another, bringing destruction and death. The most obvious evidence of the military purpose of the underground complexes is their entrance defense systems. In Derinkuyu and Kaimakli, archaeologists discovered massive stone doors, round discs up to 1.5 meters in diameter and weighing about 500 kilograms. These stone blocks were installed in special grooves and could only be closed from the inside. Notably, each such disc had a small hole in the center, not only for observing what was happening outside, but also for conducting aimed fire with bows. The corridors of the underground cities were designed to maximally hinder the advance of invaders. Narrow, low passages forced enemies to stoop and move one by one, making them vulnerable to defenders. Special traps were located on each level, disguised pits, sudden dead ends, and intricate labyrinths where strangers could wander for hours, subjected to attacks from hidden niches. The communication system within the underground complexes deserves special attention. Acoustic wells allowed messages to be transmitted between levels, and special signal chambers served to coordinate the actions of defenders. In some underground cities, even primitive alarm systems have been found. Stone plates installed in such a way that when pressed, they emitted a loud sound, warning of danger. Historical chronicles contain numerous mentions of the use of Cappadocia's underground cities during military conflicts. The Byzantine historian Procopius of Caesarea described in the 6th century how the local population hid underground during Persian invasions. His records speak of the Persians' unsuccessful attempts to smoke people out of the underground shelters, and how the invaders, despairing of storming the impregnable underground fortresses, were forced to retreat. The underground cities were particularly actively used in the 7th and 8th centuries, when Cappadocia was subjected to Arab raids. The Arab commander Muslim ibn Qutayba wrote with disappointment in his memoirs about invisible enemies hiding in the bowels of the earth. According to him, Arab troops could control the surface, but the underground world remained impregnable, allowing the local population to wage guerrilla warfare, suddenly appearing from underground and disappearing just as quickly. During the Byzantine-Seljuk wars of the 11th and 12th centuries, the underground cities once again proved their strategic value. The Byzantine emperor Romanos IV Diogenes, preparing for a decisive battle with the Seljuks, used the underground complexes of Cappadocia as secret caches for weapons and provisions. After the defeat of the Byzantines at Manzikert in 1071, many Christian communities in the region found salvation underground, avoiding forced Islamization. Archaeological finds confirm the military use of the underground cities. Arrowheads, fragments of armor, and other weapons from various eras, from the Bronze Age to the Middle Ages, have been found in the corridors and chambers of Derinkuyu. Particularly interesting are the findings of primitive grenades, clay vessels filled with flammable materials, which were presumably dropped on the heads of invaders through ventilation shafts. Some researchers believe that the underground cities were part of a broader regional defense system. They could serve not only as shelters, but also as bases for guerrilla detachments, secret arsenals, and centers of resistance. The extensive network of tunnels connecting various complexes allowed defenders to maneuver, shifting forces to where they were most needed. The underground cities of Cappadocia represent a unique example of human communities adapting to a constant military threat. Instead of building traditional surface fortresses, locals created impregnable citadels underground, utilizing the natural properties of tough rocks and engineering ingenuity. This strategy proved so successful that for many centuries, the underground cities remained a reliable refuge, allowing lives, culture, and religious traditions to be preserved during the most difficult periods in the region's history. Beyond traditional science, there exists an entire world of alternative theories regarding the origin of Cappadocia's underground cities. These hypotheses, though rejected by most scientists, resonate with many enthusiasts and independent researchers. One of the most popular versions links the creation of the underground complexes to the activities of a highly developed ancient civilization that possessed technologies far surpassing the capabilities of known historical cultures. Proponents of this theory point to the astonishing precision of stone processing, the complexity of ventilation systems, and the mathematical exactitude of the underground levels layout. Some researchers draw parallels between the underground cities of Cappadocia and other mysterious ancient structures. The pyramids of Egypt, the Pumapunku complex in Bolivia, the underground labyrinths of China. In their view, all these objects could have been created by representatives of a single global civilization, the traces of which were almost completely erased by a planetary catastrophe. Anatolian folklore has preserved many legends about underground dwellers. Local traditions feature mysterious beings who inhabited the underworld long before humans appeared on the surface. These creatures are described as possessing ancient wisdom and unusual abilities. According to some tales, they taught humans the art of construction, agriculture, and metallurgy. In other versions, the underground inhabitants appear as guardians of secret knowledge, accessible only to the chosen few. It is interesting that similar myths about underground dwellers are found in the folklore of many peoples around the world, from the Hopi Indians in North America to the Tibetans in Asia. All these legends are united by the motif of a parallel civilization hidden from the eyes of ordinary people in the depths of the earth. Another exotic theory links the underground cities to extraterrestrial civilizations. Its proponents point to unusual bas-reliefs and rock carvings in the region, interpreting them as images of alien beings or spacecraft. In their opinion, the underground complexes could have served as bases for aliens, or were created by humans under their guidance. Some enthusiasts even claim that technological artifacts of extraterrestrial origin may still be hidden in the deepest, unexplored levels of the underground cities. There are also theories linking the underground cities to esoteric and occult practices. According to these versions, the underground labyrinths were created as places for secret rituals and initiations. The complex structure of transitions between levels is interpreted as a symbolic representation of the initiate's spiritual path. Some researchers note that the acoustic properties of certain rooms could have been used to create special sound effects during ceremonies. A less fantastic, yet still alternative theory suggests that the underground cities were built as shelters not from external enemies or natural disasters, but from cosmic radiation. According to this hypothesis, ancient builders possessed knowledge of periodic solar flares or other cosmic phenomena that posed a danger to life on the surface. The tuff rock, from which the hills of Cappadocia are composed, indeed possesses good protective properties against various types of radiation. However fantastic these theories may seem, they make us ponder how limited our understanding of ancient history is. Official science is often prone to underestimating the knowledge and technical capabilities of ancient civilizations. Perhaps the truth about the origin of Cappadocia's underground cities is far more astonishing than we can imagine. Modern archaeology unveils new facets of Cappadocia's underground world through advanced research technologies. The 21st century has brought a revolution in methods for studying ancient structures, allowing us to peer into places previously inaccessible to the explorer's eye. Ground-penetrating radar scanning has become a true breakthrough in the archaeology of underground cities. This technology allows for the creation of three-dimensional maps of hidden subterranean structures without the need for excavation. Radio waves, penetrating through tough rock, reflect off voids and dense objects, forming a detailed image of invisible rooms and corridors. It was thanks to ground-penetrating radar that in 2015, a Turkish-American expedition discovered a previously unknown underground complex near Nevşehir. According to preliminary estimates, this city may surpass the famous Derinkuyu in size, covering an area of about 7 square kilometers, with a depth of up to 20 levels. Three-dimensional modeling has allowed archaeologists to virtually reconstruct underground cities in all their complexity. Laser scanning captures millions of points, creating a data cloud that is then transformed into an accurate digital model. Such reconstructions not only help scientists analyze architectural features, but also form the basis for virtual museums, where everyone can journey through ancient labyrinths without leaving their homes. the interdisciplinary approach has become a key factor in the success of modern research. Archaeologists work hand in hand with geologists, chemists, biologists, and computer modeling specialists. Analysis of microparticles from the walls and floors of underground premises helps determine what products were stored in various chambers, what animals were kept in stables, and what crafts were practiced by the inhabitants. The study of ancient DNA from organic remains helps establish genetic links between inhabitants of different underground complexes and trace migration patterns in the region. One of the most intriguing discoveries of recent years has been the uncovering in Ozcanak of a complex system of hydraulic structures dating back to the first millennium BC. This system included not only wells and cisterns for water storage, but also primitive filters made of sand and activated carbon, as well as ceramic pipes for distributing water between different levels. Such a level of engineering thought forces us to reconsider our understanding of the technological capabilities of ancient builders. An international project to study the ventilation systems of underground cities has revealed the astonishing efficiency of ancient air ducts. Computer modeling showed that even with all levels fully occupied by people and animals, the system provided sufficient air exchange. Moreover, the placement of ventilation shafts created constant air currents that not only provided breathing, but also regulated temperature and humidity in various parts of the underground complex. Archaeoastronomical studies have revealed an interesting pattern in the orientation of some ventilation shafts. They are aligned in such a way that on certain days of the year, primarily on equinoxes and solstices, sunlight penetrates to specific levels of the underground cities. This suggests a calendar function for these shafts and their possible connection to religious rituals. The underground cities of Cappadocia have long ceased to be mere archaeological sites. Today, they have transformed into a living symbol of cultural heritage, uniting past and present. Annually, millions of tourists from all over the world descend into the cool, tuff labyrinths to witness the amazing creation of ancient masters with their own eyes. The tourism industry has turned Cappadocia into one of Turkey's most visited regions, and the underground cities of Derinkuyu and Kaymaklı have become true gems of this unusual destination. But for the local population, these ancient complexes are more than just a tourist attraction. They are a crucial part of their cultural identity, a link between generations. Many families in the villages surrounding the underground cities can trace their ancestry back to Byzantine times, and even further. Their folklore, songs, and dances preserve echoes of the lives of ancestors who found salvation underground. It is especially interesting to observe the revival of religious practices in these ancient sanctuaries. In some underground temples, Christian services are once again held, especially on days honoring local saints. Orthodox pilgrims from Greece, Russia, and other countries come to worship the frescoes created by the hands of their co-religionists many centuries ago. For them, the underground churches are not museum exhibits, but sacred places filled with spiritual power. At the same time, underground cities have acquired a new symbolic meaning in the context of modern global challenges. Against the backdrop of growing concern about environmental problems and climate change, ancient underground shelters are perceived as an example of sustainable architecture in harmony with the environment. Stable temperatures, natural ventilation, efficient use of water resources, all these features of underground cities inspire modern architects and engineers. Local educational programs actively include the study of underground heritage in school curricula. From an early age, children learn about the history of their region, participate in archaeological expeditions, and projects for the preservation of ancient complexes. This approach not only fosters respect for the past, but also cultivates a sense of responsibility for the future of these unique monuments. In modern Turkish art, the theme of underground cities also occupies a special place. Writers, artists, and filmmakers turn to this phenomenon, reinterpreting it in a contemporary context. Orhan Pamuk's novel, My Name is Red, contains poignant reflections on underground cities as a metaphor for the hidden layers of national consciousness. In visual arts, images of underground labyrinths become symbols of the search for identity, an inner journey to one's roots. The inclusion of the underground cities of Cappadocia in the UNESCO World Heritage List in 1985 underscored their universal value for all humanity. This recognition not only contributed to the preservation of the monuments, but also stimulated international cooperation in their study. Today, scientists from dozens of countries are working to unravel the mysteries of the underground labyrinths, joining forces and sharing experiences. The underground cities of Cappadocia amaze with their scale and engineering complexity, but they are not unique in world history. Across the globe, people of different eras and cultures went underground, creating subterranean settlements of astonishing beauty and functionality. A comparative analysis of these complexes reveals surprising parallels and equally interesting differences. In Iran, near the city of Kerman, lies the ancient underground city of Kariz. Like the Cappadocian complexes, it was built over many centuries and reached impressive dimensions. However, unlike the tuff labyrinths of Anatolia, the Iranian city is carved into dense limestone. This required different technical solutions from the builders, more massive supports and smaller rooms. At the same time, Kariz's ventilation system demonstrates a striking similarity to its Cappadocian counterparts, although the creators of these complexes probably never directly contacted each other. On the other side of Eurasia, in China's Shaanxi province, is the underground city of Luoyang, created during the Han Dynasty about 2,000 years ago. Unlike the Cappadocian complexes carved into soft tuff, Luoyang is a system of artificial caves in lowest deposits. Chinese underground dwellings have a more regular layout, with a clear orientation to the cardinal directions, reflecting the philosophical concepts of feng shui. Functionally, however, they are similar to Anatolian ones, the same living quarters, storage facilities, and water supply systems. Particularly interesting parallels are found when comparing Cappadocia with the underground cities of Tunisia. In the Matmata region, local Berbers have for centuries created underground dwellings, extending several levels deep. As in Cappadocia, these complexes provided protection from extreme temperatures and enemy raids. Surprisingly, the Berbers used almost identical ventilation systems with vertical shafts, although no historical evidence of contact between these cultures has been preserved. In North America, the Pueblo Indians created impressive complexes in the cliffs of Mesa Verde. Although technically not entirely underground structures, they demonstrate the same principle of using natural geological formations to create protected settlements. As in Cappadocia, the Pueblo dwellings included communal spaces, storage facilities, and ritual rooms, kivas, functionally similar to the underground temples of Anatolia. Closer to us in time and space are the underground cities of Odessa. The catacombs of this Black Sea port, though created much later than those of Cappadocia, exhibit a similar multi-level structure. Unlike the Anatolian complexes, the Odessa catacombs were initially created as quarries for shell rock extraction, and only later adapted for habitation and shelter. Nevertheless, the engineering solutions for ventilation and drainage show a striking similarity to ancient counterparts. What unites all these disparate underground complexes, created in different eras and by different cultures? First and foremost, universal human needs for safety and comfort. Going underground has always been an effective survival strategy, whether escaping climatic extremes, enemy invasions, or religious persecution. The second unifying factor is similar engineering solutions. Despite the absence of direct contact, the builders of underground cities around the world arrived at similar technical ideas. Vertical ventilation shafts, passage-blocking systems, multi-level structures. These elements are found almost everywhere, demonstrating the universality of human ingenuity. However, despite all similarities, the underground cities of Cappadocia stand out for their scale and complexity. Nowhere else do we find such extensive multi-level complexes capable of sheltering entire communities for months. This points to the special conditions of the region, both geological and historical, that made the creation of this underground phenomenon possible. In the scientific community, debates about the underground cities of Cappadocia continue unabated. Researchers from different schools and disciplines offer conflicting interpretations of the same archaeological data. The central question remains the dating of these grandiose structures. The traditional viewpoint, supported by most Turkish archaeologists, attributes the creation of the main underground complexes to the Byzantine period, from the 4th to the 11th century CE. Numerous Christian artifacts found at various levels, as well as stylistic features of frescoes and architectural elements, support this version. However, a group of researchers from Oxford University, led by Jonathan Henderson, has put forward an alternative hypothesis. Based on radiocarbon analysis of organic materials extracted from the lower levels of Derinkuyu, they claim that the first underground chambers were created as early as the Bronze Age, about 2,000 years BCE. In their opinion, the underground cities developed gradually over millennia, with periods of active expansion and relative oblivion. Equally sharp discussions are caused by the question of the original purpose of the underground complexes. Professor Mehmet Yilmaz of Istanbul University advocates the military defensive theory. He points to numerous defensive elements, massive stone doors, narrow passages, traps, as irrefutable proof that the cities were primarily created as refuges from enemy invasions. His opponent, French archaeologist Pierre Dubois, considers the main function of the underground cities to be religious cultic. In his opinion, many chambers were originally created for performing rituals, and defensive elements were added much later. In support of his theory, he cites the orientation of many halls along astronomical lines and the acoustic properties of some chambers, which amplify the sound of the human voice. American geologist Robert Schoch put forward a hypothesis about the climatic purpose of the underground cities. Based on paleoclimatic data, he argues that between the 6th and 8th millennia BCE, the Cappadocia region experienced a series of extreme climatic events, including prolonged periods of anomalous heat and cold. In such conditions, underground chambers with their stable temperature could have been a decisive factor in the survival of local communities. Of particular interest are the studies of Italian anthropologist Maria Rossi, who is studying genetic material from ancient burials in the region. Her work shows surprising genetic diversity among the inhabitants of the underground cities, which contradicts the theory of isolated religious communities. According to Rossi, the underground complexes were a meeting place for various cultures and peoples, a kind of melting pot of ancient Anatolia. The Russian archaeological expedition, led by Alexei Petrov, focused on the technological aspect of the underground cities. Analyzing tool marks on the walls of tuff chambers, researchers concluded that specialized construction techniques existed, passed down from generation to generation. This suggests a continuity of construction traditions over many centuries, contrary to the theory of disparate periods of creation of underground complexes. Turkish historian Ahmet Yasin proposes a synthetic approach to understanding the underground cities. In his opinion, these complexes never had a single purpose. In different historical periods, they served different purposes, from storage facilities to religious centers and military shelters. Such functional pragmatism explains many contradictions in archaeological data and allows competing theories to be reconciled. Debates are also flaring up around the question of the creators of the underground cities. Traditionally, they were attributed to early Christian communities fleeing persecution. However, New archaeological finds indicate a significantly earlier origin for at least some complexes. Israeli archaeologist David Cohen put forward a hypothesis about the Hittite origin of the first underground structures. In support of his theory, he cites similarities between some architectural elements of the underground cities and Hittite surface structures of the 2nd millennium BCE. The underground cities of Cappadocia are one of the most astonishing testaments to human genius and perseverance. Having traversed millennia of history, these hidden labyrinths continue to guard their secrets, only gradually revealing them to persistent researchers. What then can we say today about this phenomenon, bringing together disparate fragments of knowledge? First and foremost, it is evident that the underground cities of Cappadocia were not created in a single moment or with a singular purpose. Archaeological data convincingly demonstrate the multi-stage development of these complexes. The first underground dwellings likely appeared during the Hittite period, approximately 3.5 millennia ago. Initially, these were simple storerooms and shelters, carved into the soft tuff. Over time, they expanded, deepened, and became more complex, reflecting the changing needs of local communities. The most probable scenario is that the underground cities served different purposes in various historical periods. In the Bronze Age, they might have primarily been storage facilities for grain and other valuable resources. During the Persian and Hellenistic rules, their functions expanded to include a defensive aspect. The Byzantine era added a religious dimension, transforming many underground spaces into churches and monasteries. The genius of the creators of the underground cities was manifested in their ability to adapt natural conditions to their needs. They did not fight nature, but cooperated with it, utilizing the natural properties of tough rocks, their softness during carving and strength after exposure to air, their ability to maintain a stable temperature and filter water. This harmony with the environment makes the underground cities of Cappadocia remarkably modern in their concept, anticipating many principles of sustainable architecture. The technological achievements of the creators of these complexes deserve special attention. Without complex mechanisms and modern tools, they created ventilation, water supply, and security systems whose effectiveness is confirmed by modern engineering calculations. Their intuitive understanding of the physics of airflow, hydraulics, and mechanics speaks to a high level of practical knowledge passed down through generations. The cultural significance of the underground cities extends far beyond archaeological interest. They represent a unique example of human adaptation to a hostile environment, be it natural disasters or military threats. In this sense, they become a metaphor for the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to find unconventional solutions in the most challenging situations. For modern humanity, facing global challenges, from climate change to political instability, the underground cities of Cappadocia can serve as a source of inspiration. They remind us that sometimes the solution to a problem lies not in confronting difficulties, but in creatively adapting to them, in using available resources in the most effective way. The legacy of Cappadocia's underground civilization is not only the physical structures carved into stone, but also the intangible heritage of engineering thought, social organization, and spiritual practices. By studying these ancient labyrinths, we better understand not only the past, but also ourselves, our fears, hopes, and boundless capacity for creativity. Ultimately, the underground cities of Cappadocia remain an open book, many pages of which are yet to be read by future generations of researchers. Every new technology, every interdisciplinary approach brings us closer to a more complete understanding of this phenomenon. And perhaps the main lesson we can learn from studying these ancient shelters is that human ingenuity knows no bounds, especially when it comes to survival and the preservation of one's cultural identity.